Andy, Father Jim, Sam, Paul,
Yeah.
known as Pooch.
Who?
And
Rex.
Aileen, they had one daughter and those boys.
And then John, Jim, and Laura. Laura was in Point, West Virginia. That's where he's from.
Yeah.
So,
Named Billy Pittsburgh that had been kidnapped and everything.
he found his birth certificate at the courthouse, Dad's.
Oh, really?
And was talking about it. It said January 10th, 1920. And it has Mom and Dad on there, but it didn't say where they were born.
Of Mom and Dad when they lived in Bridgeport. And it had my older sisters and brothers, and Leona had, it must have been shortly before Bill was born, and they told me that picture, I remember they told me she was expectant again. That's her last baby. She's 42, I think.
That was.
But she don't look like it on that picture.
That was Dad.
Yeah.
Huh.
She still had a waistline and
Yeah,
she didn't
if
look
he was
like
the last one.
yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was supposed to have been the last one. And then when Bill come along, Leona, my oldest sister, had already had her first child. And so
okay.
she hated Bill. She really did.
Yeah.
Leona hated that kid because she said he came but he couldn't, poor kid couldn't help it.
Sure. That's like Judy with
Blame that
Terry
mom and daddy,
Kevin.
you know.
Yeah.
And said she came just in time, or he came just in time to spoil it for the grandchildren. And I guess that was one way to look at it. But,
You know, you have any idea how long they lived in Bridgeport?
no, I sure don't.
We were trying to figure out. We didn't know whether he was just passing through there. And
Oh,
was there-
no,
Or
they
what took him
lived-
there? Because he.
The glass factory. He followed the glass factory.
Well, that's what I thought. There is a James. Maybe that's that James. Yeah, it is. There's a James G. Courtney that lived there around the time Dad was born, and he was born. That would have been him. No, this was. There was a James G. born in 1921.
You know, I went to Salt
It's not
Lake
right.
City one time, and I run quite a bit of that down, and I found where, like a census, when a census had been taken,
Right.
and it had the kid's name, mom and dad, and the older kid's name, and then there was a girl that lived with them.
Oh, really?
But of course, I never knew her, but that's what this census, when it was come to
Showed
their
that.
house, and that she
Oh,
was
yeah, she
living
was
there
living.
at that time, but I don't know who it was.
This James G. was a glassblower, and
Well, so was.
I was wondering whether it could have been
so
like
was,
Frank's brother, because there's a Jim here that maybe he
could have been.
lived there
But
too.
see, they had a glassworks in Alexandria. I was born in Alexandria.
Indiana.
And but there was a glassworks there, and
Right.
they lived there. And then it was somehow or other those glass factories worked different seasons or something out there because it was his job that took him to. That's why I don't think he would have been born in Pennsylvania. But
So
and then the glass factory in Arkansas. I was 6 when he went to Arkansas. We lived there. Well, I started in first grade there, and I was in the 7th grade when we came back to Indiana. And he had gotten sick by that time and knew it was terminal, so he wanted to come back, I guess, to where Leona and Babe both lived in Elwood.
She must have lived in Arkansas about 8 years then,
Probably around that
or around 8
time.
years.
So then he passed away in Elwood?
He passed away at Uncle Charlie's.
Who did?
My dad.
what grade were you in then? Well, I put down here that he died in 1930. So
That he passed
that would
away.
have been, Dad would have been like 10 years old, I guess.
Yeah, I was 12, I think.
What year were you born in?
16.
1916? And you were 12?
Well, I think I was 12. But I thought there was 3 years between Bill and I. Maybe there was just
I
2.
always heard that he was 9 when his dad passed away.
Did you?
That's
Well,
what he always used
Well,
to say.
then
He
if
was
you're
9
3
years
10,
years-
old.
11, 12, okay.
Because I can remember him saying, well, he was only 9 years old.
Mm.
Isn't that funny? Because that's how old Tommy was when Dad died. Tommy was 9 years old. I can remember him standing out on that little back porch just crying. That's young to lose your dad.
Yeah. Well, even Sheila, she was the youngest. She was 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
She was the youngest of all.
Mm-hmm.
So he died shortly after you got back to Elwood, then, I guess.
I think that he was sick in the bed 6 months at Uncle Charles.
Hmm.
Because I know Mama was, well, your mom knows what a hard worker she was.
Mm-hmm.
And she would help Aunt Lottie in the house. They had a house full of kids and they had hired hands. They had to feed them all, you know, and she helped in there, but she also worked out in the field. And I remember one day when Dad was hemorrhaging, us kids had run the field to get her. She was hoeing corn or something or other, I don't know what, for her to come to the house because he was hemorrhaging so bad. He vomited buckets of blood. I shouldn't be, if you were recording that, I shouldn't be telling all that.
Well, that's
That's
what
okay.
they want to
But,
know all the
but then
background.
when I asked the doctor then, because I knew what my dad went through with, and I asked my doctor, you know, what to expect. Tom said she wants to know how long she's got. I said, no, I don't. I don't want to know that. I want to know what
the
to expect
symptoms are.
and what's going to happen before that I will know.
Need
you
to know, yeah.
And he said, well, that's what we're trying to do, keep you from going through any of that. And I told him, I said, well, I know my dad hemorrhaged several times.
And he died of cirrhosis of the liver. But you say he drank for years?
For years he drank, but not from
Not
from what
when
I
she
can
was
remember.
born.
Prior
That
to
was prior,
the
probably
kids
his young
being born,
years.
maybe.
Well,
Maybe even
I
before he
imagine
married.
that maybe Leona and Russell, Francis,
They could maybe remember when he did.
they probably could. But
So now how many kids are there with you and Dad? How many children?
8, I think.
8 of you?
There was a boy died when he was 6 months old, Willis.
Oh, really?
Willis died.
You had a brother named Willis?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have that.
Where was he at in the...
Well, let's see, there was Leona and Francis. And
Who was the oldest? Leona was the...
Russell. And I believe he was between Russell and Babe.
So there's Leona,
Irene, of course.
Leona was the oldest?
and who was next? Francis?
Francis was
Mhm.
next?
And then there was
Russell.
Russell. And then Willis?
I believe that he was next, and then Babe,
Irene?
because
Oh, Babe?
there was quite a
Irene, which
Yeah.
there was quite a area there where there weren't. It had been a baby every 3 years or 2 years or whatever, and there by him dying that left. She just was the baby a long time. I guess that's where she picked up that nickname of Babe.
Oh.
Babe.
Okay.
So there was a long stretch
And-
between you and Babe?
And then Josephine, and
Now
yeah,
was Josephine younger than you?
no, she's older.
Oh, she was.
So she's after Babe.
Okay.
then.
So then Babe, then Josephine, then you, and then Dad.
Mhm. That makes 8, doesn't it?
I counted
9 counting the one that passed?
Now,
let's
what
see.
was Josephine's last
Hey,
name?
count in the
Was
past.
she married to?
Oh,
No, she's married to a Faust.
Faust. I
Jack
keep.
Faust.
Who
Okay,
was?
Jack Faust.
Who was?
Josephine.
Josephine? Yeah, I
Jack
have.
Faust.
there's
I
a
kept,
bunch
for
of
some
Fausts
reason
in
I
the
kept
Elwood,
thinking it was
out
all.
at the Elwood Cemetery when we go looking. There's
Who
quite a
was
few Fausts.
Well, she's got 3
I had,
babies.
yeah, I had Jack Faust, and it said gave birth to 3 children, all died. Josephine died when the last one was born.
Mm.
Did she die during childbirth? She did. Now, is that where Billy's buried with her?
I always thought it was with.
Mom said Billy was on top of Josephine.
I think he's the foot of her.
I always heard he was on top, but I always thought.
Well,
it
it is. They're on the
I
top.
thought it was Dora Pearl.
No, I don't think
No,
so.
Mom said she thought it was Josephine.
But they're all right there together.
Mm-hmm.
Next time you're in town, we need to go up there together, because you said you knew where Billy's was. You saw it one time? Or did you find it just accidentally?
I was with somebody that was pointing it out, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know that it's marked. Is it marked?
Well, Josephine's
I
would
don't
be,
know.
and
Yeah.
Billy.
Yeah, we found some of those others that were there besides Dad's.
I know
But if we go, it'll be
Mom
on
and
the
Dad's,
record.
and Francis had these made, just these little old bitty, looks like cement
Mhm.
markers. And last time we were up there, which has been about 3 or 4 years ago, I was feeling so bad because those markers are so awful of
Worn.
it, cheap, and well, yeah, they are weather worn too. And Jim told me, he said, well, you can, if you want to get, you know, he said, we go ahead and get it. And I never,
Never did get back then, huh?
no, never went on with it.
That is where your mom and Dad are both buried there. In the Elwood, that same cemetery where Dad is.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just
Well, now,
right. Josephine's here, and I think your mom's just right in this row across this way. Just like if Josephine's here, and the rows that's going that way.
Yeah.
And then she's just right close, right.
I don't remember, where was Bill, was he buried in that cemetery?
Yeah, he's out on the
He's
roadside.
right along the
On
road.
the
right
road,
along the
just
road.
a stone in from the road.
I took some.
J Street, isn't it? Or-
I took some pictures when I was there, and I turned around so you could see where the trees were and so on, so I could better see
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
whenever we went back, so that we.
Of what? Where you went
Where
with?
Dad.
We've been up there
Oh,
several.
I know where Dad's. I
Quite
could
a
go
few
right
times.
to Dad's. I just
But I
can't
kept
find
looking for
Josephine
Alt
for Mom
because
to
I was
find
thinking
Billy. We've been
Josephine
up there
was
several
married
times.
to an Alt.
But the office is always closed. We
Now
end
that
up
you
usually
say
going on
Fausto,
the
I
weekend. I
remember
talked to the
Fausto.
man,
Faust, yeah.
and he said, "Well, just call me
And
the day if you're
anyway,
gonna come up, and I'll
You
meet
know,
you there."
so
and
the
get
guy
papers
that
and
at
show
the
where it's
office,
at,
we
and
called
then-
finally, and Nancy did, and so he said that if she'd call and come up, he'd meet her and take her to where the graves were.
Yeah, there's
And they're
nobody
pretty
there.
helpful.
We usually go on the weekends, though, and there's nobody there. You know, like
Yeah.
in the office. So we'll have to ride up some afternoon when I get off early.
Yeah, I'll get off.
I
one of
go
your
in at
early
6
days.
o'clock. Friday's the only day we can go in that early. The rest of the week we go in at 6:30, or we can go in as late as 8:30. They have
Okay.
flexible hours. The earlier you go in, the earlier you get off. As long as you put in your 8 hours, they don't care.
Well,
Come in
that's
at 7
pretty
or
good.
yeah,
Pretty good, yeah.
it's very nice.
So the old country, you don't know where that was? I mean, other than just.
Well, it was the British Isles somewhere. It was either England or the grandmother. One of them was Scotch and one of them was
Yeah, that's what I had was Scotland.
Irish.
Yeah, I thought, because you said that great grandpa was like, great great grandpa was red haired. Somebody said he was red haired and kind of had a temper.
Redhead and a temper, I can't imagine that.
I can't either.
I never have had much of a temper. And Dad didn't. He might have with you. But
No.
overall, I thought Dad
He was
was pretty
mean.
mellow.
He was mean as a
He
kid,
was
I'll
just
tell you that.
yeah, he was just a
Because
rascal
he was
type,
mean
you
to
know.
my
but-
sister Josephine and I.
Mischievous.
And he was Mom's, of course, that was her pride and
Uh-huh.
joy. And he would go, she worked at Leeson's downtown, and on Saturday night she had to work all day Saturday till 9 o'clock. And he had this red wagon, and he'd go to town and meet her, and a lot of times he would pull her. She was so tired, and her feet hurt so bad, and he would pull her home, which was there in Elwood, but I don't know how far we lived from the town, probably.
What
8 or
was he
10
like,
bucks.
12 or something?
even after he got older than that. But he was mean to Joe and I, and he fought, you know.
Not Daddy.
And then when he'd come home, or when they'd come home, we'd start telling Mom what to tell, and he'd be back behind a door or something, going like this, laughing, and of course he knew that Mom was going to take his part, and she said, "Now, are you girls going to start?" I can hear her now saying that.
Yeah.
"Are you girls going to start? I'm so tired." So we just shut up. And
She didn't want to hear it, and he knew he could get by with it.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
that
he
made
was-
him worse than
That
ever.
made him a rascal.